Hi there. In this lecture we're going to have a look at a very interesting game, Bobby Fischer against Dennis Allan. This is in 1964, a clock simultaneous display. We have e4 from Fischer, e5 from Dennis Allan. We have the Italian game, the two knights defense, knight g5, d5, e takes, and now Dennis Allan plays the FRITZ variation. So Fischer plays the very strongest move, c3. So see the technical analysis of why d6 is a bad idea. We do have downsides in our position, which are they become exploitable basically. Unprotected bishop on c4 and unprotected pawn on g2, they basically become exploitable. It's not enough to take on f7. Basically black's going to be absolutely fine. So c3 is the strongest move. And here we have b5. And you'll know this position now is we're in other territory. We're in the eleventh territory with bishop f1. We've just transposed. So the variation could have been here b5, and a bad idea. So after e takes, the variation could have been b5, and if we take, that's giving black a good game. So we play here bishop f1, and now black plays knight d4. So we have the same position. We've just transposed. So yeah, we're in that territory here. After e takes, knight d4, c3, b5, bishop f1. You might wonder here, while we're here, what about h6? We get a small edge here. C takes d4, h takes g5, d takes e5, knight takes d5. We have queen b3. After bishop e6 we castle, we have a small edge. If knight f5, queen e2, we have a small edge here. Knight d6, okay, they have a blockade on our d pawn. We put the bishop on b3. Bishop e7, d3 helps control e4, and we have actually a significant advantage here. We are a pawn up for not too much, so knight f5 isn't particularly good. So b5, we get this key position. Okay, and now black actually plays knight takes d5. So this is the critical test, trying to leverage the unprotected knight on g5. We play c takes d4. This is what Fischer played. Queen takes g5. Bishop takes b5 check, king d8. And now, actually, Fischer actually played what seems to be an inaccuracy here, queen f3. Castling does look scary, but we've established that white has this method. After bishop b7, there is a kind of weakness of the last move. d7 is only protected by the king. And we have a kind of defensive, fascinating defensive attacking method with queen f3 here. That pins the knight. So just to recap here, if knight f4, we just take on b7 and there's no problem. So black plays rook b8, and now we play d takes e5. We have the audacity to play this because if knight f4, we have queen g3, the bishop controls e2, there's no knight e2 check. So we've seen this analysis in the other section. So okay, so knight e3, yeah, queen h3 is the key move, where all of a sudden we're not just defending g2, we're also threatening checkmate. So black usually takes on g2, and we get this line where we can establish an advantage here. The knight can't come to h4 immediately because of bishop g5 check and then taking out the knight. So bishop e7, bishop e2 covers the f3 square, and we get an advantage here, for example. This is going to lead to an advantage. This situation, we're getting an advantage. We are a pawn up, we have a small advantage. So castling is the key move, but Fischer plays queen f3. So we're in an interesting Fischer game. We have e4, which is a mistake. So it seems here bishop b7 is kind of transposing into what we've just seen. It's another transposition where we play queen h3 and leverage d7. But there is actually something unique about this position here after queen f3 that black can actually do better with the queen against queen f3 with the move e takes d4, which does hold the knight. And you might think, well, this is impossible because of bishop c6, right? The thing is, there's knight b4 here after bishop takes a8, knight c2 check, and yeah, we're going to end up losing our rook. If we played king d1, there's bishop g4. This position, in fact, black can do better than bishop takes f3. Queen c5 check first, and then even h5 first, and then take. And it's just an even position. So black does actually equalize at least with e takes d4. So that does actually seem a very accurate move here. Okay, so yeah, so that's interesting. If we take that move sequence again, if bishop takes f3 immediately, white actually has so much for the queen. White has a small edge here. Even if queen takes f2 happens b3, white has a small edge overall. So anyway, back to the Fischer game though. So after queen f3, black made a mistake, e4. So Fischer takes on e4, bishop d6, and now Fischer castles. We have bishop b7, so it looks like a really scary position, especially in a simul where there's not much time to calculate. It seems a lot of things are pointing at the white king here. If rook b8 had been played, we can actually play a nudging move h4 to try and drag the queen away from the knight on d5. So if queen f5, because otherwise if we take on d5 we're also protecting b5. So queen f5, the queen's come off, bishop c4, knight b4, knight a3, white has a small edge here. This position, b3 is actually very accurate. If bishop takes, we actually have a small edge here. We've got two extra pawns in this position for the exchange. It's pretty good. If we played rook e1, we're asking for trouble because if bishop takes c4, knight takes c4, and our rooks get forked. So this is an advantage for black. So basically, yeah, rook b8. The key move for white is h4, and then taking the queens off. Bishop c4. It is scary stuff with this knight c2, but we have knight a3. And here we sack the exchange and we're going to be fine. Sometimes sacrificing the exchange is the thing to do. So anyway, in the game though, bishop b7 is played. And now Fischer actually plays a mistake, d3. There's a stronger move here for white. Leveraging that bishop on the diagonal. Can you see what it is for 100 points? Which this was actually lead to a clear advantage. It's the move rook e1, 100 points if we got this. Threatening queen e8 checkmate. Not checkmate immediately, but mating. So I'll put it on the board, you know, h5, queen e8, and this is a kind of opera style mate. So say c6, the bishop drops back, knight f4. We have rook e3. And we're really neutralizing black's attack potential here. h3, f5, say, queen c2, g5. We can play d5. And this is good for playing queen b3 now. So hitting the bishop on b7. Queen c3, hitting the rook. And then actually invading with queen f6 check. Queen takes f5. We get a big advantage here. We've unraveled and we've blocked the bishop on b7 with this d4 move. So this is much better for us. So basically, yeah, rook e1 is actually more accurate than what Fischer played. But we have, so d3, and now black makes a big mistake, knight f4. There is actually a key thing that black can do here instead of knight f4. It's really a brilliant tactic. Can you see what it is? Okay, it's bishop takes h2 check. It is a brilliant tactic. King takes h2, and the most accurate here, well, now is knight f4. This is possible, so hitting the queen. And yeah, if queen takes b7, can you see what black plays, which is crushing, which is checkmating, in fact. Yeah, queen h4 check takes out king escape squares, and knight e2 is a checkmate. So yeah, this is really amazing. So actually, yeah, so bishop takes f4. Let's take bishop takes f4 now as an option. Queen h5 check. So there isn't going to be a mate with knight e2, but black gets to take the queen on e4. And knight c3, white does have a lot of material. a6 is one of the better moves. D takes, A takes, b5. This position, black is getting a small edge, but nothing more. So yeah, in this variation, it's not such a terminal thing. White has got a lot of material for the queen, to be fair. So bishop takes f4. Yeah, if queen h4 check, king g1, Fischer's own analysis, he thought that white was really busted. But actually, white plays here a key move in this position. Can you see what it is? Which gets a lot of material for the queen, which is definitely about equal. What's the key move here? Yeah, bishop g3 hitting the queen. Important tempo. Queen g5, which seems to try and leverage the unprotected bishop on b5. But now knight c3 is even. This is actually an even position. If we take on e4, queen takes, black has the advantage. But so we want to play knight c3. And let's say a6. If bishop b7, rook fe1, you can see that white's pieces are pretty well coordinated. White actually has a small edge overall. And say a6, bishop a4, black can take on d3, and it's an even position. So yes, all in all, this was a moment in the game. Instead of knight f4, yeah, it is a brilliant tactic. It doesn't necessarily win in all variations. It can just equalize for black. Bishop takes h2 check. So in the game, different story. So knight f4 here. Now, this does threaten queen takes b5. Fischer does take on f4. So we have queen takes b5. If bishop takes e4, bishop takes g5 check, we are a piece up here. This is hopeless. f6 we take, we're a piece up. Thanks very much. So that's the only move for black in the circumstance. And now d5 is played. So here also knight c3 was very accurate to counterattack the queen instead of moving the queen. On queen takes b5, queen f5. And in this particular position, black's king is actually really in trouble here. In the case of queen takes c3, bishop takes d6, and actually black's king is in trouble now. On queen takes d4, queen g5 check. We're controlling escape squares, so we can be excited. Queen f6. If f6, queen takes g7, and here, for example, queen takes h8, is winning for white. But otherwise, yeah, if the rook moves, we've got queen c7 checkmate. So yeah, this isn't particularly good news. This whole thing with knight c3, it's pretty convincing that actually queen f5, this is an interesting piece sack. Instead of queen takes c3, if bishop takes f4, queen takes f4, queen takes c3, rook fc1 is again a really strong attack. The king's in the center after all. That tries to hold on to c7, but rook a to b1. And here queen f3 actually looks at the rook, and it's difficult for black to defend that rook. We're winning the rook, basically. So yeah, knight c3 turns out to be even more accurate than moving the queen. But yeah, it does require what seems to be quite a bit of calculation. So Fischer played d5. It's still an advantage for white. It does seem pretty sensible, this move. We have now queen takes b2 being played. And now, yeah, very accurate move here. What would you play? Yeah, bishop takes d6. We don't worry about queen takes a1. C takes d6 is played. If queen takes a1, again, king safety issues immediately actually checkmate the king like this. So C takes d6. And now very accurate move again. What would you play here for 10 points? Yeah, rook e1, taking authority of the e file. Queen f6 is played. If queen takes a1 here, queen e7 check, rook c1 check, and here rook takes c6 check. We're checkmating basically. But again, if king b8, queen c7 is also checkmate. So black tried after rook e1, queen f6, and now we have great move here, knight c3. We have rook c8 being played. If queen takes c3, queen e7 check, and we can win the queen, winning. So rook c8, queen b4 is now looking at d6, so the queen can't really leave to take on c3. If queen takes d6 is checkmate. And we're looking at b7 as well. If rook takes, we can consider queen takes b7 as really dangerous. So we have rook e8 being played. Now, yeah, this is interesting. Queen a5 check. Really accurate stuff. King d7. And what do you think ends the game here? Yeah, queen a4 check. Really neat, accurate stuff from Fischer. This ends the game. If king c7, we're just going to take on e8. It doesn't matter about c3 here. Rook b1, and black's in big trouble. You know, black's the exchange down here with bad king safety. So that's a good move. There's also even more accurate than rook takes e8. There's knight b5 check, queen a5 check. You can all run with checks until queen takes a7. And here, if rook b8, knight d4 is possible. Even if it doesn't matter about e1 being taken. And now black is in a position where they're losing material. So queen g5, queen takes b8, we're just winning material. So yeah, that's even more crushing. But anyway, the game ended at queen a4 check. So it's interesting, Fischer wasn't interested also that check is pretty forceful. He wasn't interested in queen takes b7. Black may be getting some resources here to play with, for example, queen takes c3 here, and black's got some frats. You know, if taking the queen's holding c8 and also threatening queen c1 mating. So yes, queen takes c3 would seem to be the key idea here for black. So this is much more accurate what Fischer did, which is the check to get this kind of skewer check. And we mentioned king c7. So if king d8, we've got that extra on e8. So if king d8, we can take on e8 with check. So yeah, that's why king c7, then taking. So not giving black a chance. Yeah, this is not giving black a chance. This variation. Black's got a big advantage there. So the game actually ended though on queen a4 check. Okay. Great stuff. Really accurate play from Fischer. Amazing stuff. So this was You might not have seen this Fischer game before. He's so accurate even in simuls, and he definitely bypasses the kind of trap lines. C3 is very good. Okay, thanks so much. Hi there. I hope you enjoyed that game sample. It's actually from my course, which you can find at the Kingscrusher TV page, which has great discounts. It's the Italian game Mastery, the Ideal Beginner's Opening. So just very briefly, if we click there, you can also see other free sample videos. Just do expand all sections, and you can see these preview links if you want to see other free previews and get an idea of the course yourself. I'm going to keep it short here. Just basically to say I had a fantastic time seeing many brilliant games in the Italian game. You can see from the number of collections how epic some of these games are, that they've been collected like hundreds of times at chessgames.com. And yeah, I really hope you check out this index and may consider getting the course. Okay. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.